The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a silver ocean under the artificial stars. Hundreds of alien species filled the curved seats, their voices creating a buzz that echoed off the crystal walls. Ambassador Do-hyun stood at the center podium, his hands steady despite the weight of his mission. Behind him, a holographic display showed burning colonies and fleeing ships. "Honored council members," Do-hyun began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "The Velkari Empire has destroyed 12 human colonies in the past month. Our people are dying. We need military support to defend our remaining worlds." A wave of clicking sounds came from the insect-like Zorvani section. Their delegate, a creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, spoke first. "The humans ask for help against the Velkari. The same Velkari who conquered the Altani homeworld in 3 days?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not the warm laughter of friends, but the cold sound of beings who found something amusing in another's pain. Do-hyun felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. High Counselor Thex 9 of the Altani floated above his section on anti-gravity discs. His blue skin shimmered as he spoke. "We remember the old stories from Earth, tales of human warriors who fought with metal sticks and explosive devices. But those days are long past. Humans have lived in peace among the stars for 300 years. Surely such a soft life has made them weak." Commander Seok-jin of the Velkari Empire stood in his section, his tall frame covered in the black armor that had become famous across the galaxy. His voice was deep and confident. "The Terrans believe their ancient fighting ways can stand against plasma cannons and energy shields. They are like children playing with wooden swords while their enemies carry lightning." More laughter filled the hall. Do-hyun looked up at the gallery where Captain Ha-neul sat in her simple gray uniform. Her face showed nothing, but her dark eyes held something that made him think of old Earth stories about tigers wading in tall grass. "The human military records show no major conflicts in 2 centuries, said the Velkari commander. "They have fought only pirates and small raiders. They know nothing of real war." A delegate from the crystal-based Nexari species chimed in, their voice like breaking glass. "Perhaps we should place some humans in our museums." Living examples of a once fierce species that chose comfort over strength. The voting began quickly. Species after species cast their decision into the central computer. The result appeared in glowing numbers above the chamber. 847 votes against providing aid, 12 votes in favor, 23 abstentions. Do-hyun felt the weight of those numbers. 847 civilizations had just told humanity to face the Velkari alone. He bowed formally to the council, though inside he felt like screaming. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Ha-neul made her way down from the gallery. She moved with the easy grace of someone who had spent years in different gravity wells, but there was something else in her step, something that reminded Do-hyun of a predator. "Ambassador," she said quietly when she reached him. That went about as expected. Do-hyun looked around the emptying chamber. "Captain, our colonies have maybe 6 months before the Velkari reach New Busan. After that, they'll move on to Earth itself. What do we do now?" Ha-neul's weathered face showed the first hint of expression Do-hyun had seen from her all day. It wasn't fear or sadness. It was something much more dangerous. "We remind them why they called us legends in the first place," she said. As they walked toward the exit, Do-hyun noticed that several alien delegates were watching them. Some looked curious, others amused. The Velkari commander Seok-jin stood with a group of his officers, their conversation too quiet to hear but their body language clear. They were already planning their next moves. "Captain," Do-hyun said as they reached the transport bay. "May I ask you something?" "Of course. You don't seem worried about facing the Velkari alone." Ha-neul stopped walking and turned to face him. For a moment, her carefully controlled expression slipped, and Do-hyun saw something that made his blood run cold. Not fear, but anticipation. "Ambassador, do you know what my grandfather did during the water wars on Europa?" "I'm afraid I don't. He was a tunnel fighter. Spent 3 years crawling through ice caves with nothing but kinetic weapons and explosive charges, hunting pirates who thought their energy shields made them untouchable." She paused, looking back at the council chamber. "The funny thing about energy shields is that they're designed to stop energy weapons. They don't work so well against old-fashioned momentum." Do-hyun felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that while these species evolved past physical warfare, humans never forgot it. We just got better at it." Ha-neul started walking again. "The council thinks 300 years of peace made us soft. They're about to learn that evolution doesn't always mean losing your edge. Sometimes it means sharpening it. Their transport arrived, a sleek diplomatic vessel that would take them back to human space. As they boarded, Do-hyun looked back at the massive station that housed the Galactic Council. Thousands of species lived and worked there, representing civilizations that spanned the galaxy. Captain, there's something else I need to ask. Yes? When you say we're going to remind them why they called us legends, what exactly do you mean? Hanul settled into her seat and closed her eyes. For a long moment she was quiet. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but carried the weight of absolute certainty. The galaxy forgot something important about human legends, Ambassador. They remember the stories, but they forgot the lesson. Legends aren't born from being peaceful. They're born from walking into fire and coming out the other side. As their ship pulled away from the station, Do-hyun watched the lights of the council chambers grow smaller. Soon they would be back in human space, where generals and admirals waited for word of the council's decision. He thought about how he would explain that humanity stood alone against the Velkari Empire. But as he looked at Captain Hanul, something told him that maybe, just maybe, alone was exactly how humans fought best. The Velkari had conquered dozens of worlds with their advanced technology and superior numbers. They had plasma weapons that could melt through steel and energy shields that could stop any attack the galaxy had seen. What they had never faced was an enemy that didn't try to match their technology, but instead used something much older and more dangerous. They had never fought humans who remembered that sometimes the best way to beat advanced weapons was with simple ones, wielded by people who knew how to use them. In 6 months, the Velkari would reach New Busan. They would come expecting another easy victory against a species that had grown soft among the stars. They were about to discover that some legends never die. They just wait for the right moment to remind everyone why they became legends in the first place. And humanity was about to walk into the fire once again. The military station Aegis Prime floated in the darkness between Earth and Mars, its gray hull scarred from decades of use. Inside the main briefing room, General Wu Jin stood before a holographic display showing the advancing Velkari fleet. Red dots marked enemy positions while blue ones showed human colonies in their path. "Gentlemen and ladies," Wu Jin said to the assembled officers, "the Galactic Council has made their position clear. We stand alone against the Velkari Empire." Colonel Young-soo, a veteran of the Titan mining wars, leaned forward in his chair. "General, our intelligence shows the Velkari have plasma cannons that can punch through our ship armor like paper. Their energy shields can stop anything we've thrown at them so far. That's because we've been trying to fight them on their terms," said Major Ji-hai from across the table. Her uniform bore the insignia of the Special Operations Division, and her scarred hand spoke of battles fought in places where energy weapons were useless. "We've been using energy weapons because that's what everyone else uses. But what if we stopped trying to match their technology and used something they've never seen?" Lieutenant Kyung-ho, the youngest officer in the room, looked confused. "Ma'am, what do you mean? Surely they've seen every type of weapon humans have developed." Dr. Min Seo, the chief military engineer, activated her own holographic display. "Actually, Lieutenant, they haven't. While the galaxy moved to energy-based warfare, humans kept developing kinetic weapons. Railguns, mass drivers, and good old-fashioned projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. The display showed a cross-section of a Velkari energy shield. Their defensive systems are designed to absorb and deflect energy attacks. The shields work by creating a field that disperses plasma and laser fire, but they were never designed to stop physical objects moving at high velocity." Sergeant Daewon, whose gray hair and steady hands marked him as a career soldier, smiled. "You're talking about using bullets against laser guns?" "Bullets traveling at 10% the speed of light," Dr. Minseo corrected. "Railguns can accelerate tungsten rods to velocities that their shields simply can't handle. The rods don't carry energy that can be absorbed. They carry momentum, and momentum always wins." General Wu Jin brought up another display showing human military history. "While other species evolved beyond physical warfare, we perfected it. The Velkari know how to fight enemies using plasma and energy weapons. They have no experience with kinetic warfare or close-quarters combat." Combat engineer Hyo Jin stood and walked to the display. "We've been working on something special for the past year. Kinetic assault suits that enhance human strength and speed while maintaining compatibility with conventional weapons. The suits are designed to work in zero gravity and can survive in vacuum for hours. The display showed a human figure in powered armor, but unlike the sleek energy-based suits used by other species, this armor looked brutal and practical. It bristled with projectile weapons and carried what looked like ancient human tools adapted for space warfare. The beauty of kinetic weapons, Hyojin continued, is their simplicity. No power cells to drain, no energy signatures to detect. A tungsten rod fired from a railgun is invisible to their sensors until it's already punched through their hull. Intelligence Officer So Young activated her section of the display. We've been studying Velkari psychology and tactics for months. Their entire military doctrine assumes long-range energy combat. They have no training for close-quarters fighting because they've never needed it. The display showed recordings of Velkari soldiers in action against other alien species. They moved in formation, relying on their energy shields and superior firepower to overwhelm enemies. But their movements were predictable, designed for battles fought at distance. They're trained to fight like this, So Young explained, showing a Velkari unit advancing in perfect formation. Energy shields forward, plasma cannons charging, moving as a single unit. It's effective against enemies who fight the same way. But what happens when the enemy gets inside their formation? Asked Lieutenant Kyung-ho. That's where it gets interesting, So Young replied. We found records of a pirate attack on a Velkari transport 3 years ago. The pirates used boarding pods and kinetic weapons. The Velkari soldiers panicked. They had no training for enemies who could get close enough to touch them. General Wu Jin stepped back to the center of the room. The council thinks 300 years of peace made us weak. They're wrong. Those 300 years gave us time to perfect warfare while everyone else forgot it. Dr. Minseo brought up technical specifications for human weapons. While other species developed energy weapons that require complex power systems and cooling mechanisms, we refined projectile weapons to near perfection. A railgun has 3 moving parts. A plasma cannon has 300. Simple weapons don't break down, added Sergeant Daewon, and they don't run out of power at the worst possible moment. The briefing continued for hours as officers and engineers shared their preparations. Human ships had been quietly retrofitted with kinetic weapons while maintaining the appearance of standard energy-based systems. Special forces units had been training for boarding actions in close quarters, combat in environments where energy weapons would be useless. Captain Boram joined the briefing via hologram from her stealth frigate Ghost of Soul. General, my ship has been testing our new tactics against unmanned targets for the past month. The results are impressive. Velkari shield generators can't handle the kinetic impact from our railguns. The rods punch straight through and keep going. What about their armor? Asked Colonel Young-soo. Designed for energy dispersion, Boram replied. A tungsten rod moving at sufficient velocity treats their armor like it's not even there. The same principles that make their defenses so effective against energy weapons make them vulnerable to kinetic impact. Major Ji-hai leaned back in her chair. It's almost funny when you think about it. They evolved past physical warfare and forgot how to defend against it. Meanwhile, humans kept all the old skills and made them better. There's another advantage, said Intelligence Officer So Young. Velkari society has no concept of individual initiative in combat. Their soldiers follow orders and stick to predetermined tactics. Human soldiers are trained to adapt and improvise. Lieutenant Kyung-ho looked around the room at the veteran officers. Sir, are you saying we're going to fight a technologically superior enemy using ancient human tactics? General Wu Jin smiled, and for the first time since the council meeting, it wasn't a pleasant expression. Lieutenant, we're not using ancient tactics. We're using human tactics. There's a difference. Every species in the galaxy developed beyond physical warfare except us, said Dr. Minseo. They see that as primitive. We see it as maintaining our edge. The briefing concluded with assignments and timetables. In 6 months, the Velkari would reach New Busan with overwhelming force and superior technology. They would expect easy victory against humans who had grown soft among the stars. Instead, they would face something the galaxy had forgotten existed. They would face humans who remembered that technology was only as good as the warrior using it, and that sometimes the most advanced strategy was knowing when to use the simplest tools. As the officers filed out of the briefing room, General Wu Jin remained behind with Dr. Minseo and Captain Hanul, who had arrived during the final hour. Doctor, Hanul said quietly, how many ships have been retrofitted? All of them, Captain. Every human vessel in the fleet now carries kinetic weapons alongside their energy systems. The Velkari won't know what hit them until it's too late. Hanul nodded. And the Special Forces units? Trained and ready. Sergeant Daewon's people can board an enemy ship and disable it from the inside using tools the Velkari have never seen. General Wu Jin looked out at the stars through the briefing room's viewport. The galaxy is about to learn something important about humanity. We didn't become legends despite our primitive nature. We became legends because of it. The preparations continued through the night and into the following days. Across human space, soldiers trained with weapons their enemies would never expect, and engineers perfected tactics that had been forgotten by every other species in the galaxy. The Velkari were coming with their plasma cannons and energy shields, confident in their technological superiority. They had never lost a battle, never faced an enemy that could challenge their advanced weapons. They were about to meet humans who had never forgotten the most important lesson of warfare. It's not the weapon that wins the fight. It's the person holding it. The space around New Busan looked peaceful in the morning light of the system's yellow star. The colony below showed no signs of panic or evacuation. Ships moved in normal patterns between the orbital stations and the planet's surface. To any observer, it appeared to be just another quiet day in human space. Then the Velkari fleet arrived. The massive ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their black hulls gleaming with the deadly beauty of advanced technology. At the center of the formation, the dreadnought Supremacy stretched for nearly 2 kilometers, its plasma cannons already charging with brilliant blue energy. On the bridge of the Supremacy, Fleet Admiral Kex II stood before the main display showing the human colony. His tall frame was covered in the ceremonial armor worn by Velkari commanders, black metal that had never been scratched by enemy fire. Begin scanning for defensive positions, he ordered his crew. Standard conquest protocol. The scan results appeared on his display within moments. 3 orbital defense platforms, 2 patrol ships, and a handful of civilian vessels. Nothing that could challenge even a single Velkari destroyer, let alone an entire fleet. Admiral, said his tactical officer, we detect no significant military presence. This should be a simple bombardment followed by occupation. Kex II nodded with satisfaction, another easy victory to add to his record. The humans had built their colonies far from any military support, making them perfect targets for the expanding Velkari Empire. Open a channel to the colony, he commanded. Let's give them the standard surrender demand before we begin. The communication array activated, sending the Admiral's voice across space to New Busan. Human colony, this is Fleet Admiral Kex II of the Velkari Empire. You have 10 minutes to surrender unconditionally. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your world. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a voice came back across the communication channel, calm and steady. Velkari Fleet, this is Captain Boram of the Terran Defense Force. You have 10 seconds to withdraw from Terran space before we demonstrate why humans are called legends. Laughter filled the bridge of the Supremacy. The tactical officer looked up from his instruments with amusement. Admiral, we show only 1 human ship in the area. A single frigate hiding behind the 3rd moon. 1 ship threatens our entire fleet? Kex II shook his head. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. Begin bombardment of the colony. We'll deal with their brave little ship afterward. The plasma cannons of the Velkari fleet began their charging sequence, energy building to levels that could crack a planet's crust. The sight had terrified dozens of species across the galaxy. Entire civilizations had surrendered rather than face the devastating power of Velkari plasma weapons. But as the weapons charged, something impossible happened. The space around New Busan suddenly filled with human ships. They appeared from behind asteroids, from within the planet's ring system, from positions that should have been empty space. Stealth technology that the Velkari had never encountered kept them hidden until the moment they chose to reveal themselves. Captain Boram's voice came across the communication channel again, but now it carried a different tone. Not the politeness of a diplomat, but the cold certainty of a predator. All units, weapons free. Show them how Earth's children fight. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The human ships didn't retreat from the Velkari plasma barrage. They didn't try to match the aliens' energy weapons with their own. Instead, they did something that defied every tactical prediction in the Velkari database. They accelerated directly into the enemy formation. Impossible, shouted the tactical officer on the Supremacy. They're flying straight into our plasma cannons. But the humans weren't committing suicide. As they closed the distance, their ships opened fire with weapons the Velkari had never seen in combat. Railguns that had been perfected over centuries of human warfare launched tungsten rods at incredible velocities. The Velkari energy shields, designed to absorb and deflect plasma attacks, had no defense against simple momentum. The tungsten rods punched through the protective barriers like they weren't there, continuing on to smash through armor and hull plating with devastating effect. On the bridge of the destroyer Domination, Commander Vel-8 watched in horror as a single railgun round tore through his ship from bow to stern. Shields are useless. Their weapons are passing right through. The human ships moved through the Velkari formation like wolves among sheep. Their smaller size and superior maneuverability let them avoid the massive plasma cannons, which were designed for long-range bombardment, not close-quarters combat. Lieutenant Jun Seo at the weapons console of Bo-Ram's frigate watched his targeting display with grim satisfaction. Each tungsten rod found its mark, punching through Velkari hulls and continuing on to hit ships behind them. The kinetic weapons didn't stop when they hit their targets. They kept going until they hit something solid enough to absorb their momentum. "Captain," he reported, "enemy shields are completely ineffective against our railguns. We're shooting right through them." "Excellent," Bo-Ram replied. "Continue firing. Target their weapons systems and engines." The space battle became a slaughter as human fighters swarmed through the gaps in the Velkari formation. The small craft were too fast and agile for the enemy targeting systems, which were designed to track the predictable movements of energy-based fighters. Pilot Namgi threaded his fighter between two Velkari destroyers, his craft performing maneuvers that should have killed any organic pilot. But humans had been flying in Earth's harsh environments for centuries, where only the strongest and most skilled survived. The gravitational forces that would incapacitate other species were just another day's work for pilots trained in Earth's polar storms and Jupiter's crushing atmosphere. "This is impossible," Admiral Kex II shouted on the bridge of the Supremacy. "Our technology is superior. Our weapons are more advanced." "Admiral," his tactical officer said with growing panic, "their weapons are primitive kinetic projectiles, but they're incredibly effective. Our shields can't stop them, and our armor is designed for energy dispersion, not kinetic impact." The Admiral watched his fleet being torn apart by humans using weapons that belonged in a museum. Plasma cannons that could level cities were useless against fighters that moved too fast to hit. Energy shields that could deflect any known weapon were powerless against simple metal rods moving at tremendous speed. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "We studied their military history. They're a peaceful species that hasn't fought a real war in centuries." On the human command ship, General Wu Jin watched the battle through tactical displays while coordinating with his ground forces. The Velkari had expected easy conquest of a defenseless colony. Instead, they were learning that humans had never forgotten how to fight. "General," reported Colonel Young-Soo from the surface of New Busan, "Velkari landing craft are attempting to deploy ground forces. Should we engage?" "By all means, Colonel. Show them what happens when energy-based soldiers meet kinetic weapons." The Velkari ground forces had trained for combat against other energy-using species. Their tactics assumed long-range engagements with plasma weapons and energy shields. They had never faced enemies who preferred to get close enough to touch them. Sergeant Daewon led his squad through the colony's industrial district, their kinetic assault suits allowing them to move through terrain that would stop other soldiers. When the Velkari troops appeared, advancing in their standard formation with energy shields forward, the humans simply did something unexpected. They closed the distance. "Contact front," Daewon called as his squad opened fire with weapons the Velkari had never encountered. Projectile weapons that fired physical rounds instead of energy beams. Explosive charges that created kinetic force instead of energy bursts. The Velkari soldiers, trained to fight at long range with energy weapons, had no idea how to respond when the enemy got close enough to touch them. Their energy shields were designed to stop plasma bolts, not human soldiers carrying kinetic weapons and explosive charges. In space, the battle was already over. The Velkari fleet, designed to overwhelm enemies with superior technology and overwhelming firepower, found themselves outmatched by humans who fought like their ancestors had on Earth's bloodiest battlefields. Admiral Kex II stood on the bridge of his burning flagship, watching his fleet die around him. In 30 years of conquest, he had never faced an enemy that fought like this. The humans used primitive weapons and ancient tactics, but they used them with a skill and ferocity that his advanced technology couldn't match. "Admiral," his communication officer said quietly, "the humans are requesting our surrender." For the first time in his career, Fleet Admiral Kex II of the Velkari Empire gave the order that he had never expected to give. "All ships, cease fire. Signal our surrender to the human forces." Captain Boram's voice came across the communication channel one final time, but now it carried the tone of a victor speaking to the defeated. "Velkari Fleet, you are ordered to power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Welcome to human space. We hope you've learned something about legends today." As the last Velkari ships powered down their weapons, the galaxy prepared to receive news that would change everything. The species that had been dismissed as aged. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began at what humans called 3 a.m, station time. Representatives from across the galaxy had been awakened by urgent messages that seemed impossible to believe. The Velkari Empire, which had conquered dozens of worlds in the past decade, had been defeated by humanity in a matter of hours. Emergency Session Coordinator Vial 7 called for order as delegates filled the Great Chamber. The usual organized seating arrangements had given way to chaos as species that rarely spoke to each other gathered in confused groups, trying to make sense of the reports flooding in from across Velkari space. "Order, order," Vil 7's mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "We will hear the official report from the Terran." Representative Admiral Chan Wu of the Terran Expeditionary Force stood at the center podium where Ambassador Duhyun had pleaded for help just 6 months earlier. But there was no pleading in Chan Wu's voice now. He spoke with the calm confidence of someone delivering a routine status report. "Honored delegates," he began, "I am here to inform the Council that the Velkari Empire has surrendered unconditionally. Their homeworld fell approximately 6 hours ago. All Velkari military forces have been ordered to cease hostile operations and submit to human authority." The chamber erupted into chaos. Voices in a dozen different languages filled the air as delegates tried to process what they had just heard. The Velkari Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just days ago, had been completely defeated by the species the Council had refused to help. High Counselor Thex 9 of the Altani was the first to regain his composure. His blue skin had gone pale and his voice shook as he spoke. "Admiral, this is impossible. The Velkari had plasma weapons, energy shields, antimatter engines. How could they be defeated by a species using primitive technology?" "With respect, Counselor," Chan Wu replied, "you assume our technology is primitive because it's different from yours. While the galaxy evolved past physical warfare, humans perfected it. We learned that the most advanced weapon is useless if you don't know how to use it properly." Field Commander Sung Ho appeared as a hologram next to the Admiral, broadcasting from the conquered Velkari capital. Behind him, the distinctive spires of the Velkari government complex rose into an alien sky. But now they flew human flags alongside captured Velkari banners. The Velkari military was designed to fight enemies using energy-based weapons, Sung Ho explained to the stunned assembly. Their entire doctrine assumed long-range combat with plasma cannons and energy shields. They had no experience with close-quarters fighting or kinetic weapons. The holographic display showed footage from the final battle for the Velkari homeworld. Human soldiers in kinetic assault suits moved through Velkari defensive positions with terrifying efficiency. The alien defenders, trained only in energy-based combat, seemed helpless against enemies using conventional explosives and projectile weapons. Their guards didn't know how to respond when Private Jamin and his squad breached their command center with simple explosive charges, Sung Ho continued. They had spent so long fighting enemies who used energy weapons that they had forgotten how to defend against anything else. The Zorvani delegates' compound eyes glittered with confusion. But surely their superior numbers should have made the difference. The Velkari Empire controlled hundreds of worlds. "Numbers don't matter when your weapons can't hurt the enemy," Admiral Chan Wu replied. Velkari energy shields were designed to absorb plasma and laser fire. They had no defense against tungsten rods fired from railguns at tremendous velocities. Dr. Yunji materialized as another hologram, her voice carrying the calm authority of someone who had spent months studying the enemy. "Every species in the galaxy developed beyond kinetic warfare except humans. You saw this as primitive. We saw it as maintaining our edge. She activated a tactical display showing the destruction of the Velkari fleet at New Busan. Their plasma cannons could level cities, but they were useless against fighters that moved too fast to target. Their energy shields could stop any known weapon, but they offered no protection against simple momentum. The chamber fell silent as delegates watched human fighters tear through Velkari formations using maneuvers that should have been impossible. The small craft moved like living things, dodging between massive enemy ships and striking at vulnerable points with weapons the Velkari couldn't defend against. "How is this possible?" demanded Commander Seok Jin, the Velkari military attaché who had mocked humanity's fighting ability just months earlier. His proud demeanor had crumbled, replaced by the hollow look of someone whose entire worldview had been shattered. "Your people made the same mistake as everyone else," Dr. Yunji replied. "You assumed that technological advancement meant abandoning older methods. Humans never made that assumption. We kept developing kinetic weapons and close combat tactics while also embracing energy-based technology." Field Commander Sung Ho switched the display to show Velkari soldiers surrendering to human forces. "Your troops were trained to fight in formation using energy weapons at long range. When human soldiers got close enough to engage them with kinetic weapons and hand-to-hand combat, they had no idea how to respond. The footage showed Velkari defenders panicking as human soldiers breached their positions using tactics that had been perfected in Earth's bloodiest conflicts: smoke grenades, explosive charges, and close-quarters fighting techniques that the aliens had never encountered. "We studied your military doctrine for months," Admiral Chan Wu explained. "Your entire strategy assumed that enemies would fight the same way you do. When faced with opponents who used different tactics, your superior technology became a disadvantage." The Nexari delegates' crystalline form chimed with distress. But the Velkari conquered the Altani homeworld in just 3 days. How could they be so easily defeated? Because the Altani fought them using energy weapons and conventional space combat tactics, Dr. Yunji replied. They tried to match Velkari technology with their own. Humans didn't try to match it. We used something completely different. High Counselor Thex 9 looked around the chamber at his fellow delegates, all of whom seemed equally stunned by the reports. "Admiral, what are your intentions regarding the conquered Velkari territory?" "We're not conquering anything, Counselor," Chan Wu replied. "We're liberating it. Every world the Velkari took by force is being returned to its original inhabitants. Velkari colonies established through legitimate settlement are being left alone, but their military forces are being disbanded." The chamber buzzed with confused conversation as delegates tried to process this information. The humans had defeated the most feared military force in the galaxy, but instead of claiming the spoils of victory, they were giving conquered worlds back to their original owners. "Why?" asked the Zorvani delegate. "You have the power to expand your territory. Why give up what you've won?" Admiral Chan Wu looked around the chamber, his gaze stopping on each delegate who had voted against helping humanity. "Because we didn't fight this war for conquest. We fought it for survival. Now that the threat is ended, we have no interest in ruling over unwilling subjects." More reports began flooding in as the session continued. Human forces had liberated dozens of worlds in the past week, using tactics that completely overwhelmed Velkari defenders. The same kinetic weapons and close combat techniques that had proven devastating in space were equally effective on planetary surfaces. The humans are using explosives and projectile weapons that our shields can't stop, reported a Velkari officer via emergency transmission. "Their soldiers move in small groups, striking quickly and disappearing before we can respond. It's like fighting ghosts." Dr. Yunji smiled at this description. "We call it guerrilla warfare. It's a tactic humans developed thousands of years ago on Earth. While your people were learning to use energy weapons, humans were perfecting the art of asymmetric combat." Field Commander Sung Ho added more details from the occupied Velkari capital. Their command structure was designed for conventional warfare between energy-using species. When faced with human tactics, their commanders couldn't adapt quickly enough to mount an effective defense. The session continued for hours as more reports arrived from across Velkari space. World after world had fallen to human forces using weapons and tactics that the galaxy had forgotten existed. The species that had been dismissed as aged legends had proven that sometimes the old ways were the most effective ways. As the meeting drew to a close, Admiral Chanwu made one final announcement that sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. The Terran Federation is prepared to offer military assistance to any world threatened by aggressive expansion. We will help defend any species that asks for our protection, regardless of how they voted on our request for aid. The chamber fell silent. The same species that had been laughed at and dismissed was now offering to protect the civilizations that had refused to help them. "Why would you do this?" asked High Counselor Thex 9. "We denied your request for aid. We mocked your military capabilities." Admiral Chan Wu's expression softened slightly. "Because that's what legends do, Counselor. They protect those who can't protect themselves, even when those people don't deserve it." As the emergency session ended and delegates begged. 1 year after the fall of the Velkari Empire, the Galactic Council chambers looked different. The same crystal walls and artificial stars remained, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Where once there had been casual dismissal of human capabilities, now there was respectful attention whenever Ambassador Do-hyun spoke. The motion to establish joint training exercises between human and Altani forces passes unanimously, Do-hyun announced from the chairman's podium. His new position as head of the Galactic Defense Committee still felt strange, but the weight of responsibility was familiar. General Wu Jin will coordinate the implementation. High Counselor Thex 9 raised his hand for recognition. The proud Altani leader who had once mocked human warfare now spoke with genuine respect. "Ambassador, will human instructors be available to train our soldiers in kinetic warfare techniques?" "Of course, Counselor," Do-hyun replied. "Colonel Young-soo has already established training programs on 3 different worlds. The response has been excellent. The changes weren't limited to the council chambers. On the military academy station orbiting New Geneva, human and alien cadets trained together in facilities that would have seemed impossible just a year earlier. The long hallways echoed with the sounds of diverse species learning warfare techniques that their ancestors had forgotten. General Wu Jin stood before a mixed class of cadets, his weathered face serious as he addressed the young soldiers. Human cadets sat alongside Altanis or Vani, and even young Velkari who had chosen to join the new integrated forces. "The lesson isn't that kinetic weapons are better than energy weapons," he explained to the attentive group. "The lesson is that diversity in approach creates strength. When every species fights the same way, you become predictable. When you combine different methods, you become unstoppable." Cadet Taeyang, a young human from the Mars colonies, raised his hand. "General, why did other species abandon kinetic warfare if it was so effective?" "Because they were solving different problems," Wu Jin replied. "Energy weapons are excellent for many situations. They don't run out of ammunition. They can be scaled up or down easily, and they work well in space where logistics are difficult. But they also created vulnerabilities that no one noticed until humans exploited them." A young Altani cadet named Zeph-12 spoke up next. "Sir, our instructors say that humans never stopped developing kinetic weapons even after discovering energy technology." "Why?" General Wu Jin smiled at the question. "Because humans have a saying, never put all your eggs in one basket. We learned early in our history that relying on a single solution makes you vulnerable, so we kept developing everything." The demonstration that followed showed the effectiveness of combined tactics. Human kinetic weapons provided covering fire while Altani energy shields protected the advance. Velkari plasma cannons offered long-range support, while human soldiers closed to short range using techniques their former enemies were still learning to counter. Captain Hanul, now bearing the title Supreme Commander of Allied Forces, reviewed intelligence reports in her office aboard the command station New Seoul. The walls displayed star charts showing the current positions of Allied fleets patrolling former Velkari territory. Green indicators marked peaceful worlds, while yellow ones showed areas requiring additional monitoring. "Commander," said her aide, Lieutenant Colonel Insu, "we're receiving requests for military advisors from the Nexari Collective. They're concerned about pirate activity in their outer systems." "How many advisors are they requesting?" Hanul asked. "A full training battalion plus equipment specialists. They want to learn kinetic warfare techniques for use against raiders who are apparently using human-style tactics." Hanul nodded with satisfaction. "Approved. Send Colonel Young-soo's people. They have the most experience training non-human forces." The irony wasn't lost on her. Pirates and raiders across the galaxy were now copying human tactics because they had proven so effective against conventional defenses. This forced other species to learn human techniques in response, creating a cycle that spread human military knowledge throughout known space. On the memorial station orbiting Earth, former enemies gathered to honor the soldiers who had changed the galaxy's understanding of warfare. The Great Hall was filled with species that had once been at war, now united in their respect for the humans who had shown them a different way to fight. Lieutenant Colonel Insu, now retired, brought his grandchildren to see the monuments dedicated to the veterans of the HFY War. The children, both human and adopted alien refugees, listened with wide eyes as he explained the significance of the memorial wall. "This is Private Jamin's name," he said, pointing to one of the carved inscriptions. He led the squad that captured the Velkari command center using nothing but explosive charges and courage. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Young Minjung, his human granddaughter, looked up at him with curiosity. "Grandfather, why were the aliens so surprised? Didn't they know about explosives?" "They knew about energy weapons that could level buildings," Insu replied. "But they had forgotten about simple things like placing a charge in exactly the right spot to bring down a wall." Private Jamin and his squad remembered. Dr. Minseo, now in her 70s but still sharp as ever, continued her work developing hybrid technologies that combined human kinetic principles with alien energy systems. Her laboratory on Luna had become a pilgrimage site for engineers from across the galaxy who wanted to learn how to merge different technological approaches. "The key," she explained to a group of visiting Zorvani scientists, "is understanding that different solutions work better in different situations. Energy weapons excel at certain tasks, kinetic weapons excel at others. The real breakthrough comes when you know which tool to use for which job." Her latest creation, a weapon that could switch between kinetic and energy modes depending on the target, was being carried by peacekeeping forces throughout the galaxy. The hybrid design allowed soldiers to engage enemies using whatever method would be most effective, rather than being limited to a single approach. Admiral Chan Wu, now commanding the Outer Rim Patrol from his flagship Inchin's Fury, received regular communications from former enemies seeking human military advisors. The Velkari, once the galaxy's most feared conquerors, had become humanity's most trusted allies after experiencing firsthand the effectiveness of human training methods. "Admiral," reported his communication officer, "we're receiving a request from the Velkari Defense Council. They want to establish a joint base for training mixed-species special forces units." "Excellent," Chan Wu replied. "Approve the request and assign Captain Boram to oversee the project. Her experience with unconventional tactics makes her perfect for the job." The transformation wasn't limited to military matters. Trade agreements that had once favored technologically advanced species now included provisions for human expertise and training. Diplomatic negotiations that might have dragged on for years were resolved quickly when human mediators offered practical solutions that other species had overlooked. The galaxy had learned that human success in warfare came from the same principles that made them effective in other areas: adaptability, innovation, and the willingness to combine old wisdom with new knowledge. On distant frontier worlds, human settlers worked alongside alien colonists who had requested human protection. The same soldiers who had once been dismissed as primitive now served as guardians for civilizations that had learned to value their unique perspective. In the outer reaches of known space, new threats occasionally emerged. Ancient empires awakening from long slumbers, aggressive species from beyond the galactic rim, and occasionally, pirates or raiders who thought they could challenge the new order. But now they faced a united galaxy that had learned to combine the best aspects of every species' knowledge. Energy weapons provided by the Altani worked alongside human kinetic systems. Velkari shield technology protected ships carrying Zorvani communication equipment and human assault troops. Captain Boram, now an instructor at the Terran War College, concluded her lectures with the same words that had become famous throughout the galaxy. "They called us aged legends because they thought our time had passed. They forgot that legends don't die, they inspire. And sometimes when the galaxy needs them most, legends walk back into the fire to light the way for everyone else." The students, human, Velkari, Altani, Zorvani, and dozens of other species, would salute as one when she finished, understanding that the greatest strength came not from abandoning the past, but from carrying its best lessons into an uncertain future. In quiet moments, When the academy was empty and the stars shone through the great windows, Boram would remember the day when humanity stood alone before the Galactic Council. The day when they were refused aid and told that their ancient ways had no place in the modern galaxy. That galaxy no longer existed. In its place was something better, a civilization that had learned to value diversity of thought and approach, where the wisdom of the past worked alongside the innovations of the present. The fire that humanity had walked into hadn't consumed them. It had forged them into teachers, protectors, and leaders who showed the galaxy that sometimes the most advanced solution was remembering what worked before.